Well, they found a physical copy of the damn thing. About 2 months ago, I made a video discussing the elusive and controversial hentai known as Neon Genesis Evangelion Human Salvation Project. If you haven't watched that video, I highly recommend watching that before starting this video. It provides context, and I discussed what I thought was all the information currently available on the subject, leaving the opportunity open for a potential update in the future. However, I just didn't realize it was going to happen so soon after the first part. I want to give credit right away to a viewer going by the username of Lars Bathov, who commented on the previous Evangelion video letting me know that there was in fact way more information available on this topic than I initially believed. I have our original comment thread pinned at the top of that video, so definitely go and check that out. Lars was able to give me information and point me in a direction that I just didn't know was available, so suffice to say this video would not be possible without him. So Lars, I want to say thanks, man. Who made this? Was Gainax involved? Where was it sold? Is it a Japanese production? So many questions, and there are quite a few different answers. So today we are going to look at all the new information regarding the Human Salvation Project, as many of our previous questions get answered, and we get a much more in-depth look at this strange anomaly. This is the weird world of Evangelion Hentai Part 2. After posting my previous video, I received word back from avamonkey.com. In the message, they stated all the information that was known or available was said in that article. I thanked them for responding and went on thinking that there wasn't going to be any new information regarding this topic, at least for a while. That wasn't until Lars reached out to let me know that there was in fact more information available on this topic, as well as a physical release of the movie, albeit it's super rare. On December 20th, 2019, a user on Twitter was able to track down a physical copy of Neon Genesis Evangelion's Human Salvation Project. Which was honestly kind of surprising that this didn't get picked up by other people from the Evangelion community. Because to quote another Twitter user, I want to joke about this because haha porn, but this is actually unironically important work, and the NGE or Neon Genesis Evangelion fandom will owe you a debt of gratitude. I did reach out to this Twitter user, however they did prefer to remain anonymous for, obvious reasons. However, suffice to say they are the real deal. Despite this being a major fine and a big deal, the legality of obtaining this video, at least in the US, is questionable to say the least. Yes, we can all laugh and joke, because the idea of an Evangelion porn being preserved is questionable and funny, but I frequent a lot of various lost media wikis and forums and stuff like that, kind of like El Supersonic Q's. And while this one wasn't technically lost, it wasn't widely known, and if a physical form even actually existed. Because of this, we were able to uncover new information on it, which has shed a lot more light on how or even where this high-quality movie came from. And that's why this subject is the most fascinating. It's less on the content, but more so why it even exists. Aside from people just being horny.
But that's not right!
For those who've been waiting for me to show what the physical case looks like, well, here you go. Now, the Twitter user who was able to purchase the copy did so on a Japanese website entitled suraga-ya.jp and purchased the film for about 5,500 yen. Roughly, that equals about $52.21 American. Suruga-ya.jp mostly deals in Asian merchandise, so think like Play Asia, but they carry a wide abundance of different things, obviously. The Twitter user found the listing for the video online, but at the time it was out of stock, but they decided, what the hell, and added it onto their wish list on the off chance it would ever pop up again. And by some miracle, it did. The Ava community in and of itself is a very passionate one. Despite the fact that the fans have an overwhelming distaste for the product, the Human Salvation Project still nonetheless is a part of the series' history. Deciding this could be the only chance to preserve a copy and get some answers, the Twitter user decided to purchase the tape. Fun fact, the video itself may have had 2 different releases because there also exists another version of it. It's identical in terms of content, but it has different covers. Straight away, we are able to learn that the film is a Japanese production. In the previous video, we talked about the potential origin being Japanese, however, the possibility of it being a Hong Kong production given the subtitles was always an option. However, in the actual video release of the Human Salvation Project, there are no subtitles on the tape. This means sometime after its initial release, a Chinese bootlegger got a hold of it and added their own subs. So a bootlegger bought a bootleg only to add bootleg subs in order to sell on a bootleg market. Whoa. The Twitter user actually informed me that originally Ask John had posted a now dead link that provided an interview with the original individual who provided the English subs, stating the video they received was from a Chinese video CD and that the subs had been burnt in. So when was the film actually created? Now that's a little harder to pin down, however we do know when and where the film was actually sold. So Evangelion Human Salvation Project was sold on December 29th, 1996 at Comet Market 51 or Comiket 51 in Japan.
You can think of Comiket as kind of like a Comic-Con, however, it's got more of a higher emphasis on doujinshis and independent work.
Now, Evangelion's official run as a show ended on March 27th, 1996. That means the Human Salvation Project itself wouldn't actually be released for roughly 9 months. Google pins the time to complete a 30-minute animation at roughly 6 to 8 weeks, which comfortably falls into that 9-month range.
However, this was also 1996, so yeah, I'm gonna fall back on my initial argument because back then we didn't have as many tools available that independent creators could use to create animations.
Yeah, I'm still falling back on my theory that this was produced in-house by Gainax. The main reason is the production quality and the voice work. If you take a look at the censored non-pornographic stuff available online of any of the other Evangelion bootleg hentais, the quality is night and day. Here's an example from one entitled Episode Ray. Yep, there it is, some good old animation. This counts as animation in the film, as we can clearly see the bar being dragged on the right side.
Credit where it's due, it's better than anything I've animated on my channel.
I plan on covering this and a few other bootlegs in the future, as they really have their own stories to tell. However, accompanying Episode Ray is some weird live-action footage by the animators of this episode.
Technically, this film doesn't have anything to do with the Human Salvation Project, minus the fact that it's based on Evangelion, because as far as I'm aware, these are two separate teams.
However, during the live-action portions of Episode Ray, you can see one of the animators working on what looks like an old PC, and on that PC you can see him clearly working on Episode Ray. And that's because a lot of these doujinshi hentais were created on stuff like the PC-88, etc. Like we discussed in my previous video, even series creator Hideki Anno himself created a hentai for his series Gunbuster, albeit for different reasons.
At the time, Gainax was still a relatively new company, and hell, even the story of how Gainax was formed is a pretty interesting story in and of itself, but I digress.
My point is, most of the erotica consumption, or at the very least fan erotica of this caliber, was done via PC hentai games at the time, as it was popular and the most convenient for independent creators. Which to me would mean creating something utilizing traditional film cells would be more costly and likely utilized more so by the major studios.
Then I was informed that a film cell of the Human Salvation Project not only exists, but is also in the hands of a private collector.
Now, I have reached out to this private collector, but as of now I haven't heard back. However, with the film cell existing, that means this wasn't just your average run-of-the-mill doujinshi. As we briefly saw with the other bootleg hentais, the quality of the Human Salvation Project is a step above the rest, especially if they were using proper film stills instead of just creating everything via their PCs.
The Twitter user echoed a similar sentiment.
Their thoughts being that they didn't have any concrete info, however, it could have been a small group of people on the production team who created this, although it wasn't officially authorized by Gainax.
Which actually lines up to my hazy-ass memory from like 10 years ago.
The voices are also very similar to the original Japanese voice cast, but that could always be imitated. Now, Gainax or Anno himself being a part of the production, well, that's a little harder to determine. Supposedly an old thread on 2channel claimed that there was an interview with Anno himself regarding the Human Salvation Project, but it only made him really upset when they brought it up. I've never seen footage of this or is mentioned anywhere else, so take this with a grain of salt.
Now, the last bit of information that we do have is that the hentai itself was created by a circle known only as the Bandits.
This was and is the only known produced work for the group. I say only known because here in the West there is still a lot of untranslated doujinshis unavailable for Western consumption, meaning it's entirely possible that the circle had created more works, it's just unknown over here.
I understand a little Japanese, but not enough to tackle something like that.
And without digging deeper into the wide world of doujinshis, unfortunately that lead runs a bit cold.
Conspiracy time. It could have been a small circle located in Gainax that referred to themselves as the Bandits.
My personal opinion is that Gainax may have been involved, albeit they had a small team working on it. The time frame wise, this would line up to right around the time Gainax was experimenting with sanctioned pornographic material. Which, side note, quite a bit of their sanctioned pornography is actually considered lost media at this point. And if the recent Giga leak by Nintendo is anything to go on, who knows what kind of treasures still exist that a lot of these these Japanese developers have. It's also possible Gainax was producing this without the consent of Anno, and when it came time to publish, he intervened to make sure it didn't get released.
It's also possible that this production could have been a sort of Hong Kong 97 scenario.
If you haven't watched the Ultra Healthy Video Game Nerds deep dive on the game, you should, because it's extremely fascinating. However, on the video, Kowloon Kurosawa, the creator of Hong Kong 97, stated that in order to develop the game, he enlisted the help of a famous developer who wished to never be named. This developer had worked at Squaresoft, and if we knew the name, we'd know exactly what they had worked on. It's hard to gauge how big the underground scene in Japan was during the 90s for, the obvious reasons, but it's not out of the realm of impossibility the creators of the Human Salvation Project were all a part of it. The bandits could be like Kowloon Kurosawa, entrenched in the dark, depraved, and taboo Tokyo underground scene of the 90s.
Which in and of itself is an infinitely fascinating topic, but it's one I'll cover another time.
This is all speculation on my part, though.
In fairness, it's possible this was the work of solely independent creators, but it's been a little more than 20 years, and the only name that we have is the Bandits, which, I don't know, seems kind of fishy to me, but at the same time, who knows.
Finally, we come to the name of the hentai itself, as the name Human Salvation Project doesn't actually reflect what the kanji translated would be. The original English subber was the one who actually chose the name of the Human Salvation Project, which I was told doesn't actually make sense if you are to translate it out.
After all these years, basically everyone's been calling it the wrong name.
It's more likely the title itself was originally a play on words from the show's Human Instrumentality Project. By changing a few of the characters in the kanji, it actually translates out to Human Insemination Project.
Which, in all fairness, makes a bit more sense given the wordplay.
There's actually another bootleg hentai entitled Ava Get It On instead of Evangelion, which is considered lost media save for the intro video. That follows a similar style of wordplay.
The other way you could technically translate this title is the Human Rape Project, but, to each his own.
Fun side note, on the Spanish version of Netflix, they supposedly utilized an image of Asuka from the Human Salvation Project as the show's icon before taking it down when they realized, hey, there's a naked girl on here.
I haven't seen this, but if it's true, that's hilarious.
This brings us to the end for now. I still feel there is more information out there, but given the language barrier and limitations for now, this will have to be it, short of directly getting in contact with the bandits, Gainax, or Anno themselves. I think it's always possible we can learn more. It may just take some time.
If you have any other additional information or have any other theories, definitely let me know in the comments below, because I would like to see what other people's theories are regarding this topic.
Oh yeah, it's all coming together.
Make sure to keep things light and rebellious, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.